Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Delmico L. Cunningham, better known as Dr. Media. So, I know it has been a while since I've posted a video on here, and I promise it is for good reason. There are so many things going on that we're gearing up for in my personal career coming up in January. So, I've been in full Steam development for, not Steam, but I've been full on development with the company that I work with. So we've just been getting ready for something in January, which when it drops, we can talk about it. And actually, you'll see it. It'll be in a lot of different places. Interesting, right? Anyway, today I wanted to do a video that I have not done on this channel. Now, in the past, I have done videos for Unreal 3. And UE4 is out, and I've spent a lot of time getting acclimated to the blueprint system and understanding how blueprints work inside of Unreal, and just getting a feel for the program overall. So, to be honest with you, there's a lot of things that are completely different from the way they used to be inside of UE3, but in UE4, things took a turn for the better. So what I want to show you how to do is to make a blueprint that can be reused, and this blueprint can work for all of a certain asset. So if you have an asset that you wanted to, I don't know, play a sound file, or you wanted to open a door, which is the one we're going to be doing today, which is going to be opening a door. So there are a couple of assets already here inside of Unreal, and I'm going to use some of those assets. So if I go here to content, there's a starter content and a props folder. In this props folder, there is an SM door frame, and then there's an SM door. So I'm going to right click on the SM door frame, and I'm going to come here to Asset Actions, and I'm going to say Create Blueprint using this. And it's going to ask me where I want to save it to and what I want to name it. And I'm going to call this BP door. And hit OK. And open it off screen, but here it is. So I have a blueprint started that this is going to be this actor will actually have a blueprint attached inside of itself, which is something that we really couldn't do inside of UE3. We really had to just kind of reuse our scripts over and over again, but this is really kind of cool. So there's some things I need to add to this because I have a door frame, but I don't have a door. So if you look in this set, there actually is an SM door. I'm just going to click and drag that up here into my components. So this is now a component in here, and I'm going to change my grid snaps right here. Okay, they're already on 5. Normally these would be on 10 by default, but I'm going to put it on 5 just so I can get this snapped in place kind of tight, and that looks pretty good. Alright, it might be, yep, that was pretty good. And I also need something else to go in here, so I'm going to add a component. And the component I'm going to add is, I'm just going to add a box collision. And the box collision, I don't want it to be underneath this SM door. I mean, I guess it could be, but I really want it to be underneath the static, my original static mesh. So let's just move it. So you can see now my static mesh is here, and I'm going to change the name of this to door frame, just so we know what we're talking about. And SM small door, and then I have a box, and this box is just a collision box, right? So I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to scale it, and it's really cool because now they have actually made the scale tools and stuff just like it would be inside of Maya. So you can hit the W, E, and R key to get your translate, rotate, and scale tool, which is, you know, it's not a huge deal, but it's kind of a huge deal because now it's even more like Maya. So you don't have to slap the spacebar to make that happen anymore. So I'm just going to get this boxed in. This is kind of a little too big. Let's change our snaps. Just do down to like 1. And get this kind of in place. because I want to use this as a way to trigger the door opening and closing. So instead of using a trigger, I want to use this to kind of know where the door is at and being able to open and close it. So I've got that set up, and I can call this, I could change the name of the box or whatever I want it to as well. But inside of this blueprint, I'm going to go ahead and compile this and save it. So inside of this blueprint, this is the viewport, because this blueprint is attached to an actor. And I have construction scripts, and then I have event graph. This is my normal blueprint that I would use if I were doing like a level blueprint or whatnot. So I'm going to get rid of these guys. I don't need these. I'm just going to get rid of all those. Those are always in your event graph blueprint. These are always in here by default, but I'm just going to delete them because I don't need them. And what I'm going to do is go in here and start to set up my blueprint. So I've got that stuff set up, and I'm going to start setting up my blueprint. So let's look at this. So I want to look at, I actually want to look at my door. And what I want to do for this is I want to get my, where is it at? There's my box. So I'm going to say, when I select this, so you can see I can select these components. And if I select on box, I can say begin overlap or end overlap. I'm going to say begin overlap, click on my box again, and I'm going to say end overlap. So right now you can see that these two events have been set for my box, which is really what I want. So I've got my box collision in there, and the next thing I want to do is be able to control what happens and how it happens. So I need to add a variable. So the variable I'm going to add, and you can see when I click right here for variables, it just makes a brand new variable. And over here in my properties panel, I can see this is a Boolean variable. And this is what I want. I want a Boolean variable. So I want to, let's say I want to have a Boolean that says, close, let's say door prox. So like door proximity. So I've got this Boolean. I'm going to drag this Boolean in here, and you can see I can get it or I can set it. I want to get it. By getting it, well, actually I don't want to get this guy. Sorry about that. We want to drag this back over here, and we can get or set, and I want to set this Boolean. So you can see this Boolean right now, I'm going to take the execution pin, that's this gray one here, and drag that to set. So I want to set, and I want this to be true, and I'll drag this one here, and we'll set this one, and I want this one to be false. So I want the way that this is already, it's already false by default when you bring it in there, so you don't have to do anything to make it false. It's already false. So that kind of works out for us. So what I need to have happen at this point, I want my door to be able to have some kind of rotational values to it. So this part right here is cool because this sets up when I'm near my door. So I'm going to select everything, and I'll put some comments in here so we can know what we're doing. So I'm going to say this is going to be near door. So now this is all commented together. And the cool thing about doing comments is you actually get this container, and you can move the container around, and your comments move around with it. So, and to be able to make a comment container, just select everything that you want to comment and hit the C key inside of UE4, and it will bring up a comment and it'll wrap it around whatever you had selected when you press the C key. So that's kind of cool as well. So when I get it near my door, I've got that part set out. So what I want to do now is start to be able to make my, how do I make my door work? So to make my door work, it's actually pretty easy. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to come in here. So to get my door to work, I'm going to make sure I have my door selected, and I'm going to right click. I can right click anywhere inside of my blueprint, and you'll see it brings up this menu that gives me all the different properties that I can do for my door. And what I want to do, I want to actually do a rotate. So there is one in here, which is, where is my, let's see, there's a make, and sometimes there it is. So make rotator. So I've got a rotator in here. So I got my rotator in here so that I can do a value for it. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to get a relative rotation. I need to get the relative rotation from my door and be able to translate that into my door. So this is going to be this is a set. So this is going to be a set, and then let's say relative. So you can see right here, set relative rotation. Now what's really cool is you'll see that when I did this, when I clicked on set relative rotation, it brought in the target, which is my door. It actually has this sitting right here. Now if I just came in here and just, without having my door selected first, and just came in here and clicked and typed in set and did like rel and looked for relative rotation, you'll see it brings up set relative rotation for the box, for the frame, for the small door. What do you want to set that rotation for? By having what I wanted selected, it already knew to make that relative rotation node be for the object that I had selected. So that's a pretty cool little trick to know there. So the other thing is I want to attach this return value here to this rotation. So that's good. Let's stop that. And the next thing I want to do, I need to have a way to rotate this door. Now previously you would have used matinee, excuse me, you would have used matinee to be able to rotate an object inside of Unreal 3. Now inside of UE4 you can actually make a timeline. So I'm going to say time, let's see, set. It's always kind of hard to remember all these things that are in here. There we go. So it's not even a set. It is like add. And you can see when I start doing add, just add Tim, right? Add timeline. So I'm going to add a timeline in here, and there's a brand new, I have a brand new timeline node. Now, the reason why we need this timeline node and we need this rotator is because by default, I cannot take the value coming out of this timeline and pump it directly into this rotational node. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to double click on the timeline, and I'm inside of my timeline right now. So all this stuff happens inside of the blueprint window. So inside of my timeline, I'm going to make a brand new float track. So this doesn't matter. It doesn't care what axis I'm going to be using, because I'm just making a value that changes over time. It doesn't care if that value is for X, Y, or Z. So to make keyframes, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click. Hold down Shift key and click. And I'm going to click on this guy right here and make sure the time for it is at 0. And I'm going to click on this guy right here and make sure the time for him is at 2, because I want 2 seconds of animation. And the value I want is a negative 130. So I can frame this up if I click here to zoom vertical and to zoom here. So I can see this is a linear. This is a linear linear curve. Now I can change that. I can come in here and click on this. I can right click on this and say auto, user, break, linear, or constant. And you'll also notice that there's numbers beside this. So if I were to come here and click on this and press 1, it makes that into a auto tangent curve. So now I have a little bit of ease in and ease out on this right here. And then for length, I'm going to change this length exactly to 2. So now you'll see that it's 0 to 2. I've got 2 seconds of animation, and it's going to change from a value of 0 to a value of a negative 30. And I'm just going to close this. And what I want to attach this to, you'll see, and I should have named this. Let's go back in here and double click and name this. So instead of this being called track, 0 or new track 0, I'm going to say door rotation and then close this. So you'll see now I have something that's a little bit more descriptive. And you'll notice that the pin coming out of this is green, and the pin going into this make rotator is green, and the value coming out of this make rotator is purple, and then the set relative rotation here is purple. So you'll know what you can and cannot connect to things based off of the color of those objects. So you'll see here that I can take this value now and pipe it into one of these values. Now I know by looking at my viewport, if I look at my door and click on it, I can see that my vertical value, so vertical, is Z. So I want to rotate this around Z. So here inside of my blueprint, I'm going to take my door rotation and attach it to the Z. So there's my yaw. So I'm going to attach it to my Z. Now this is pretty easy to make this actually work, and I can just do something really quick. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to come here and I'm going to take the set to play. Let's make sure it's connecting to it. There we go. And then I'm going to take the end overlap and say reverse. So let's compile this. And I'm going to minimize this for a second. And let's go into our starter content. We got a blueprints folder in here. And it looks like, let's see, where did it save? Or did I save my blueprint? I might not have saved my blueprint. I don't think I did. So let's save it. I did not save it in props. This is where you want to keep up with stuff. And see, I call this BP door. Let's just say BP underscore door. And let's look where it is. Oh, okay. So I didn't save it in a really good place, honestly. If I go here to content, you'll see it's inside the blueprints folder here. So there it is. It's saved inside of that blueprints folder. So you can see there's the blueprint. So I can close this, and I'm going to left mouse click and drag this into my scene. So you'll see with this being an actor with a blueprint on it, this actually just comes in already working. It comes in as the actor and everything I've set up inside of it. So I'm going to play this. And let's walk up to the door. And let's see what's going on, because it looks like right now my door doesn't know that I'm walking up to it. So let's see what could be possibly wrong with our script in here. So let's do a little bit of debugging. So that looks good. That looks good. Oh, this is what's going on. So right here we have connected all this stuff up, but we haven't told this timeline to update this relative rotation. So let's go back here, compile. Let's save it. Let's minimize it. So now let's go back and play. And now let's walk up to our door. And you can see, look, our door works. It opens up, I can walk through it, and when I walk through it and come out of the box, it closes. When I walk up to it again, it opens. I can walk through it and it closes. Now, one thing that by default is not right about this door. Now I've fixed it in my version of this. So I'll show you something. One thing that's not set up about this door, if I come here to this door mesh and I'm going to double click on the door mesh and come right here on the properties panel and go here to static mesh, double click on that, and then then you'll see that I'm inside of the viewer for my actual door. Now, by default, this door does not have collision on it. So if you use this door in your project, or if you set up your own meshes and you bring them in here, you need to make sure that you have collision objects with those. Now, the problem with this door is that it had no collision object by default, which is fine, because if you just have an object and you want to make a collision object for it here inside of Unreal, you can just go here and say collision, and then you can say I just added a simplified collision box, and that kept me from walking through the door. So at first what was happening was I was able to walk through the door because there was no default collision on the door. But that's really it. Now, the cool thing about this is if I come in here and I use multiple versions of this door, so let's say I were to come in here and say, you know what, I want my door again, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and move this over, and I've got two doors now. Or actually, let's do this and hold this, and let's get three doors. And you might have noticed something I just did, and if you didn't, then shame on you, because it's pretty cool. If you want to make copies of something and also move your camera when you're making a copy of it, you can hold down the Alt key and the Shift key, so when you move it on axis, your camera will move while you are placing that new object, and then you just let go of Alt and Shift. So I don't need that fourth one up there. I'm gonna come in here and play this now, and let's see what happens. So I've got three doors. That one works. That one works. That one works. And you can see when I back up from it, it just goes right back to reverses the animation. And I can walk through it, it'll close. I can walk through this one. Can walk through this one. Alright, so it's really cool because now I've given myself a way to be able to have one object and make multiple blueprints with it. So that's really one of the powers of making a blueprint, making an actor as a blueprint, is that you have that functionality over it. So if you were doing things like lights, if you wanted to do where you press a button and the light comes on, you could do that. So you really don't even have to use triggers as much anymore. I mean, realistically, the collision box that I'm using is the trigger, but I don't have to do a separate trigger box and then do all of this. So you can see, there it goes. It's just doing it for that guy, doing it for that guy, and for that guy. And you'll notice that because the script knows the difference, it's not opening every door with the script that's running. That script is localized on that blueprint rather is localized on that door, and it's only happening for that door. So we'll look at this one more time, and I can show you, we can look at exactly what's happening. Now, something else that's really cool that you can do is that you can set this up and show simulation of this. So if I come in here, it's going to be kind of hard to see it because of my... So now if I come in here and actually play, you can see it shows that animation firing off, and you can see that it shows my animation, it shows me overlap, it shows my begin overlapping, and it goes through my timeline and then keeps updating the rotator until it's finished, and then when I move back, it'll show me not overlapping it and doing the same thing. So that's really kind of cool, the fact that, you know, I can kind of see that and get through that stuff very quick. So all I've done is made an overlap, set a boolean, so this means yes, this means no, and set up a timeline, had a rotator in between this, and the rotator talks to a relative position, and that's really it. You can do a lot of really simple animation with this. You could actually make things change color the same way. You could have an overlap and say, you know, color change or whatever. It's really kind of cool. So that has been how to do just like a triggered event with a blueprint and putting it onto an actor. One thing to keep in mind as well is that there are different types of blueprints. So if you're inside of the content browser and you right click and you say blueprint class, you'll see there are actors, there's pawns, there's characters, there's player controls, game base, game mode base, actor component, and then scene component. All of these are really for, of course, the actor, the pawn, and the character are all about the player or players in the world, and then these affect the entire game. Actor component affects the entire game, and then scene component affects that only that scene that you're currently in if you're streaming in different pieces of your level. Usually where you want to add stuff for your whole entire level is here. If you look here, there's the blueprints up here at the very top, and you go to blueprint, and you can see that you'd want to do open level blueprint, and your level blueprint actually says level blueprint on it. So if you're ever looking for that level blueprint, that's where you would add them. So keep that in mind too. But hopefully this has been useful, and hopefully you are still out there listening, because I do have more content. Like I say, I've been really super busy. So I've been working like 3 jobs at the moment. So you cut the doctor a little bit of slack. So anyway, until next time, my digital mutants, I will see you right here. Once again, my name is Delmico L. Cunningham, better known as Dr. Media.